Hello, everyone. Appreciate you joining us again for another Leadership Roundtable discussion. If you've attended this in the past, you know our format is rather loose. We like to be candid, answer your questions. We do have quite a few talking points on our agenda, but we really want to keep it open and candid, and give you as much information as we possibly can. We appreciate you as our volunteer leaders. You guys are key to moving this association forward, and we want to give you as much information as possible. So with that, I want to give a quick administrative update that if you're watching this, you can access the YouTube channel by clicking on, if you're watching this on the modelaircraft.org page, you click the name of the video. Inside the video, it'll take you to YouTube, and there you can actively chat and engage in conversation. Now, we on the screen can't see the chat, but we have staff behind the scenes that will pop up your questions as they come in, and we're going to do our best to answer those questions as they come in live as we go through our discussion. So let me introduce the panel. I think many of you know the individuals here. My name's Chad. I'm the Executive Director with the AMA. We have Tyler, who is with Government Affairs. We have Ilona, who heads up our clubs, and then, of course, we have Rich Hanson, our president. Rich, I'm going to turn it over to you to perhaps give a quick introduction, a welcome, and our EC meeting we just had a couple weeks ago.
Well, thank you, Chad. I appreciate that, and welcome everyone to, I think this is our 5th or 6th leadership call now. And of course, we're still in the midst of COVID-19 and the impact of that. So I know that throughout the country, the impact may be a little bit differently, but we are seeing model aircraft activity occurring. As a matter of fact, that's one of the activities that actually probably mitigate some of the COVID-19 and allows us to operate while still being responsible and social distancing, but also being able to get out and be active. The biggest impact of COVID-19 unfortunately has been on our large events where you would normally bring in people from around the country to participate in it. Local events, not so much so, because most of those people aren't traveling and are still aren't looking for lodging, and they're staying at their homes. So a lot of local events are still going on. Of course, the weekend flying is still going on, but there has been impact on the large events, and that has impacted us here at the International Air Modeling Center in Muncie. Although we did conduct the NATS this year, it was a much scaled back version. Some of the special interest groups chose not to host their events because of the concerns for COVID-19. We did go ahead and host the first National Fun Fly, which was a great event. We had over 82 participants. Once again, we were able to do that by social distancing and making sure we did it responsibly, but everyone had a great time. You know, as far as the Executive Council, we also had our most recent Executive Council meeting just after the National Fun Fly, or actually during the National Fun Fly. And we held that virtually, much the same way that we're doing this platform. We had 4 or 5 of the EC members that actually drove in for the meeting, and then the rest of the council participated via webinars. So it's a new normal, as they say, but it's not a new hobby. It's still the great hobby that we've already enjoyed and participate in. And I got to echo what Chad just mentioned as far as how important you are to this process. You know, this leadership group includes our vice presidents, our associate vice presidents, our leader members, our club officers, our safety officers, those people that are really on the front line of this hobby. And not only do they do the job of administering the hobby, but they do the job of encouraging the hobby and to fulfill the great passion that we have for this hobby. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is a new tagline we have for the hobby. You know, for years, we've talked about AMA as bringing modelers together. We've talked about AMA or the hobby in terms of getting the bug and enjoying the hobby. But with COVID-19 and some of the challenges that we're facing, we're even brought closer together. And I don't want to steal any of the thunder for that presentation, but that's one of the other things that we're going to talk about today. So Chad, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I got a feeling I forgot something, but if I did, just let me know.
No, great. Thanks for the updates. And let's talk about some of the recent developments from the Executive Council, to include the tagline. I'll back up a little bit, and then let's play a video from that. So you may have noticed over the past year or two as a member that we've been changing the tone a little bit of how we communicate, to include even down to the membership card carrier. You know, before it'd show the AMA headquarters building, but instead we thought, you know, let's showcase our members in those card carriers. Let's celebrate the members we have and the diversity we have across the country. And this new tagline is an evolution of that, as we recognize the hobby is more than Muncie, Indiana. It's not Muncie, Indiana. It's our members. It's our volunteer leaders. It's our clubs. It's the passion we have. It's the community we have. And with that, the Executive Council formed a marketing committee, and they put a lot of work into this tagline, and they collaborated with staff in getting this together. So Dylan, behind the scenes, do you mind sharing the video that kicks off our tagline?
For more than 100 years, the aero modeling community has exemplified passion every time they step up to the flight line. We experience flight as few others can. This is something that is constant from one modeler to the next. Whether you're in Holly Springs, North Carolina, Bakersfield, California, or anywhere in between, your passion remains the same: to experience flight and share it with the world. We share your passion because this isn't just our hobby, it's your hobby, and we are one community. We are the AMA.
So if you go to our website, modelaircraft.org/community, we do have graphics for you to download to use on club newsletters, for event flyers, on your SIG website. So take advantage of the free art there, and start incorporating that as we celebrate this new tagline. Another,
you know, Chad, I was just going to say, you know, I love that video. I hate to say it, but I get a little choked up when I see it. This hobby has been my passion since I was 6 years old, and I love sharing it with other people. I love doing what I can do to perpetuate and make sure the hobby stays for future generations. But that's a great tagline. Like I said, I kind of get choked up when I watch it.
It was, and I have to hats off. It was a great collaborative effort with the staff and the council, and I think it does summarize what we're about. We're about the hobby. We're about the community. So embrace it and start using it. We want to encourage you to start using that. You know, some other EC news I'd like to update those on about. You received an email, I believe it was on Wednesday, about some changes to our youth programming. And I'd like to provide some clarification on that. If you haven't had a chance, look up this email. You should have received it sometime Wednesday last week. And we've been providing updates in Model Aviation Magazine and other channels, AMA Today. I think we discussed it in a recent AMA Air-ish episode as well. For clarification, moving forward, the council has decided that we will continue to provide free programming for youth. If you have an individual who's a child who may come to your flying field and want to learn more about the hobby, I know there's mall shows aren't so much a thing anymore, but often I know Boy Scouts may come to a club, or you may have an event and you have a spectator and you have someone who's really excited to learn more. There is still a great program that we revamped and put some new life into called the Young Aviator Program. And there's no charge for youth to get involved in that. So if you have a youth individual who'd like to learn more about the hobby, get them plugged into the Young Aviator Program. With that, we still have the youth membership program, and the youth membership program includes all the member benefits and the suite benefits you would receive. A few changes: you get Model Aviation Digital instead of Model Aviation Print, but you receive the full insurance package. You receive everything you would receive as a member, and that's a $15 charge. So we have a free path, Young Aviator free path. And then for those who are more serious about getting into the hobby and competing and having the insurance benefits, there's the youth membership program. So I encourage you to check out that email we sent out last week to learn more and to see the links on that. And I wanted to address any questions that may be out there. Rich, Ilona, Tyler, anything you'd like to add on this particular topic?
Well, that's Rich. I'll chime in a little bit. I know that from some of the feedback I've gotten from members since this program launched, there seemed to be a little bit of confusion and the thought that maybe we were cutting back on our outreach to the youth by adjusting the program, and nothing could be further from the truth. As a matter of fact, the free membership program was so successful, it added tens of thousands of new AMA members to the rolls, all of which were considered full-fledged members in terms of our insurance premium. And for the first few years that we had that program, the underwriters for our coverage were willing to accept the new members, the youth members, without adjusting the premium. But it got so big that we were actually looking at the reality of a significant change in our premium because of the youth. And when we got to looking at the youth, although a lot of these youth were people that were really excited about model aviation and aviation in general, they weren't necessarily participating in the hobby. They weren't actually out there on the sticks and needing the liability insurance. So that is why we kind of recategorized the two levels within the youth program. The Young Aviator program, which is still a free acquisition for the youth, and it still gets them involved in the hobby. It still gives them a transition into the hobby, as well as transitioning into other aeronautical realms, such as our STEM education, our partnership with EAA, and it also gives them that tag, that umbilical cord to the AMA, and hopefully will then, when they get the means and the interest of actually getting out and flying, we'll bring them up to the youth member.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rich. This certainly doesn't mean that we're abandoning any youth at all. In fact, we're working with Congress, and I'll dive into this a little bit later, but working with Congress to get additional protections for our youth and those who are using UAS and model aircraft for educational purposes. So certainly a huge part of our community, and we want to reinforce that.
So Steve has a question about masks. I would encourage you to get in touch with Kyle in the education department. I'll tell you, if you're an existing youth member, and let's say your membership doesn't expire until 2027, we're still going to honor that. So your existing membership will be honored. Kyle's address is there because each school has some different criteria, and so we're working with the schools to accommodate their needs. So we still have the mask program. But if a member or if a youth wants to participate in the mask program and they need the full benefits to include the insurance, get with Kyle to learn what options you have with that, so we can accommodate your school. Dylan, there's another question that came up and I missed it. What was that? The question after Steve Culligan. Oh, same question. Okay, so yes, Jim, get with Kyle on that. We still want to encourage clubs at the school level. We want to encourage kids getting their hands on model aviation, and Tyler's going to talk a little bit about that, some legislative efforts we're doing that to really make sure that happens. So that is one area we do not want to miss a step on, and we want to continue to grow. The other thing I want to talk about and we're getting a little bit into clubs, which is our next segment. So maybe this is a good transition. The EC made a decision on changing some elements within our park pilot program and expanding the suite of benefits there. Ilona, I'll turn it over to you maybe to talk a little bit about some changes in the park pilot program. Before we get into that, let me lead up as to why. We're hearing from you, a lot of our volunteer club officers, that people are coming to your flying field saying, hey, I have an RC car or maybe a boat. Can I use it here at your flying site? And as you know, most clubs require that you need to be a member to be on the flying field. Maybe that's an agreement you have with your landowner or for whatever reason. But a lot of people who want to drive their cars on your property maybe don't need the full benefit suite of $75. Maybe they don't need all the benefits of that. But a $39 park pilot membership might be more appropriate for that membership. So Ilona, do you mind talking about some changes with the park pilot program?
Sure, absolutely. I think you covered most of it. So basically what we have done or are doing is we're going to integrate surface vehicles into the park pilot program. So it's not just limited to model aviation at this particular point in time, but it will include cars, trucks, tanks, boats. So whatever you would go ahead and define as a surface vehicle, there's going to be some restrictions to that, and we'll go ahead and communicate those. They're basically the same restrictions that we have in place for those items for the regular full adult membership that we currently have. But like Chad said, I've had a lot of clubs reach out to me asking, hey, we have these RC car guys coming and what do we do? And, we always said, well, let them, allow them on the field, but check with the property owner, because if they happen to have an accident, they're not going to be covered under AMA's insurance. So now, we're able to go ahead and really offer that opportunity and open up the doors for those RC car and RC boat enthusiasts to go ahead and come on, and hopefully you're kind of like, cross pollinating, for a lack of a better term. You're going to go ahead and reach the interest, maybe about trying RC cars yourself, and hopefully they will go ahead and switch over to the lighter side and start RC aviation.
Right, and we're hearing that from hobby shops and others as well, that there's a growing interest in surface vehicles. And so I think Ilona's right. If they're wanting to come to your field and use your property, and your club officers and your landowners good with that, encourage them to become a park pilot member, and also encourage them to get involved in aviation because it's a great hobby. And I think like a lot of us, I have RC cars and I have an RC sailboat. But my main interest is in aviation, and hopefully we can convert some of those people, become model aviators. Rich, anything you'd like to add on that as well?
No, I think you guys did a great job of covering it. I think maybe the only thing I would add is we're still looking at the park pilot programs, and we're looking at ways that it can evolve to better serve our membership. The hobby certainly continues to evolve. We're seeing a lot. Whereas before, with the park pilot program first started, we were targeting the under 2-pound, very light RC aircraft that could be flown in the park environment. Now we're seeing, still we have those aircraft. Maybe they're not quite as marketable as they used to be, but we're seeing more and more of the safe technology aircraft. Maybe a little bit above the 2 pounds, but still has very safe technology in it to allow them to fly safely in the park environment and elsewhere. So we haven't made any decisions on this yet, obviously, or we bring that out. But just know that we're still looking at ways that we can leverage the park pilot program to better serve the community.
Ilona, since we're talking about clubs, let's talk about a new program we've rolled out, Club of the Month. Do you mind sharing a little bit of what that's about and who our first Club of the Month is?
Absolutely. Let me actually go ahead and just backtrack really quick. Alan Friedman had asked a question in regards to the cars. Alan, yes, that has changed. So we are now including cars and boats into the park pilot program. They don't have to have the full membership anymore.
Now, Alan, if your club policy requires them to have a full open membership, by all means, we're going to trust you to make what's the right decision for your club. If you don't think Park Pilot's right for you, that's fine. We just want to give clubs the option to now say a surface vehicle operator can either be a Park Pilot or open membership.
Absolutely.
There you go. So yes, it won't work for this individual, and that's perfectly fine. They could still be a full open member.
Yep. Perfect. So Club of the Month. We're super excited for that. Our clubs are, the essence of us being out in the field. So we really wanted to go ahead and come up with a program to highlight and showcase our clubs and to thank them. And so we came up with a Club of the Month. Big shout out to our own Matt Ruddick. He came up with the idea. He's done a fabulous job of putting the program together. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and take one club per month, and we'll just give them all the attention and social media attention that we can go ahead and do. So our very first Club of the Month was announced on July 31st. It is the Suburban Aero Club of Chicago. It is one of the oldest clubs in the country. I believe they were formed in the early 1960s. So we're super excited. Basically, what we want to do is we want to show the clubs that are reaching out in their community, whether they have they're participating in different community events, they're giving back to the community in different ways, whether that's bringing out the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, maybe having fundraiser event for local organizations. It's just about what can we do to really highlight model aviation and show the positive effect and impact to our own community with it. So congrats to the Suburban Aero Club of Chicago. We're super happy to have you as our very first Club of the Month. You'll be hearing a lot more about the club throughout the month of August.
And the idea is, a good idea when you steal one. So this club is doing a lot of great things. We know a lot of our clubs are doing great things, but it may inspire you to maybe latch onto some of those ideas and use it as your own. And we want that. We want our clubs to be successful. Well, great. Let's move on with some more club news. The RC resale. I know we're not alone here at headquarters. I know AVPs and club officers will contact us from time to time that, maybe someone got out of the hobby or maybe their health does not permit them to enjoy the hobby anymore, and they have a lot of model aircraft that they need to sell, and they just don't know where to turn. And so thanks to the work of our foundation, we're launching a program, and we actually launched it earlier this year, but I wanted to spend a little bit of time on it because we need some help from our volunteer leaders. The idea is if someone comes to AMA saying, hey, I have a garage full of model planes I don't know what to do with, we'd like to connect them to a club or to a CD or to a member where that member can help sell those. And the idea is it could be a fundraiser for the club or for a CD for an event. So the idea is, let's say we have an individual who would like to sell model aircraft. We connect it to a local club. The club then sells it. It's a great fundraiser for the club. We do ask if by connecting the two, if you could, maybe throw a bone or two to the foundation. I think we suggest 10%, but whatever you're comfortable giving to the foundation. The idea is it's a service to some of our members who are leaving the hobby, maybe due to health, and it's a great way to help bring money to your club. If you go to amafoundation.modelaircraft.org, and if you type in RC resale, the full URL is there. But if you go to amafoundation.modelaircraft.org and you look up RC resale, there's a link at the bottom. It shows an image. It says, click here if you have models you want to donate. Click here if you want to help sell. We're looking for people to help us sell those models. So if you have more questions, contact Kelsey in the AMA Foundation or anyone at the AMA Foundation. There you go. Join the RC Sales Network. It's a great way to raise money for your event or for your club, and it helps a member who may not be able to enjoy the hobby anymore. to ensure that their models go into good hands. So if you have questions, take advantage of that, contact the foundation, and wanted to share that. The other thing I want to discuss, since we're talking clubs, is the National Model Aviation Day. And Rich discussed this. Events still are happening, but they're scaled back, or they may be changed. And we recognize National Model Aviation Day may not be as big as in years past, where you may have some events will have spectators and air shows. We understand that may not be viable, but what we're finding is a lot of people are starting to come back into the hobby. As people are quarantined, they're starting to dust off their old models and saying, you know what, I might get back into model aviation. Or someone who's never touched a model plane might say, you know what, that I've always thought about dabbling into that. I'm stuck at home. I might be interested. So we're encouraging people to still conduct National Model Aviation Day, but maybe take a different spin on more of introducing trainer models, or introducing people to how they could safely join the hobby or participate in the hobby, more as a recruitment opportunity, so people can understand how they can enjoy this great hobby. Ilona, Rich, Tyler, anything you'd like to add on National Model Aviation Day, which is right around the corner?
Yeah, it's August 15th. So that is right around the corner. So we're about 11 days away. I just think it's kind of great and how it has grown really over the years. This is our 9th year. So it's really exciting. It's really exciting to see so many clubs reaching out over the years to really introduce model aviation to everybody around them. So I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully 2021 is going to be a little bit more. I don't want to say productive. That's the wrong word, but yeah, a little bit friendlier to us as it pertains to getting all of the general public out.
Chad, this is Rich. The only thing I would add to that is certainly we want clubs to participate in Model Aviation Day to every extent possible. But we also realize that there are some realities within your community as far as what you can do or what you should do or shouldn't do in terms of COVID-19. So certainly work within your community guidelines. If it's still too soon to invite the general public into your field to participate on Model Aviation Day, then don't push that issue. Still stay within those guidelines. If there's ways that you can work with them virtually and take care of it, that would do it as well. But if you're in an area such as Montana or somewhere else where COVID-19 is not near the issue that it is elsewhere in the country, by all means, this is the foundation's flagship event. We want to continue to promote it as much as we can. As Ilona said, I think 2021 will be even a better year.
Jim, that's a great question. So Jim brought up the question. Leader clubs, gold level clubs, they have an obligation to conduct community events, and as Rich mentioned, that's not always possible. Will AMA be accommodating for that? And that does involve making some modifications to our programming. So I'll need EC concurrence on that. So I don't want to speak on behalf of the EC, Rich, but I know I suspect the EC will be very supportive of waiving some of those requirements. And we recognize this is a unique year. And so if a leader club can't fulfill all their obligations due to COVID-19, I feel very confident we'll work with you on that.
Yeah, I can't imagine the executive council not providing provisions for activities that you just couldn't do because of circumstances.
Right.
Certainly, we don't want to penalize our clubs for that.
I would say, Jim, if there are any issues with it, just go ahead and email us at clubs@modelaircraft.org when the time comes, or just include something in your renewal documentation, and I'm sure we can go ahead and take a look at it at that time.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I'll be honest, Jim, that hasn't crossed my mind yet. So yes, I think Ilona's suggestion is great. Just make note of it. They normally would, but due to COVID-19, you couldn't honor that. And as Rich mentioned, we'll work with you on that. So Ilona, anything else for clubs? Those are the club topics I had before we get into Gov. Anything else you'd like to add?
You know what? I can't think of anything right now. But That doesn't mean that in 5 minutes I may not go like, Tyler, hold on for a second.
Yep.
I just thought of something else.
No worries.
With that, Tyler, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about government relations and SRM panels and what is SRM panels, altitudes, all that good stuff.
Sure. So as I mentioned, I touched on briefly before, AMA is working with Congress to get some educational protections. There's a Department of Defense reauthorization bill that has passed. There was a provision in there that required that some name changes occur on military bases across the country, and the sides can't seem to agree on that. So it's kind of been put on hold a little bit. But we do have some provisions in that bill. It was in a manager's package, or AMA's language was, which will allow all levels of education to continue to operate UAS model aircraft under the recreational rules. That was a memorandum that the FAA issued years ago under the special rule for model aircraft. That memorandum has since expired, and we felt it best that we get that in legislation to protect educational use. It will also allow groups like the military's JROTCs to operate as recreational users as well. So that'll be great. We hope to see that bill get pushed through soon and get those educational protections in place. As Chad mentioned, we're working on SRM panels. We're implementing Section 349, the new recreational requirements that were passed into law in October of 2018. The main focus right now is getting everybody a letter of agreement in controlled airspace if you're at a fixed flying site. So if you're at a fixed site, the rules require that you and the air traffic control work on mutually agreed upon operating procedures. Right now, those letters of agreement are authorized up to the altitude that is outlined in the Lance UAS facility map. So those altitudes were kind of pre-approved, I'll say, with the air traffic control in that facility dating back over a year now. That doesn't mean that you're stuck at those altitudes. If you need to fly higher, then you reach out to AMA and we have you fill out a questionnaire and we get you on the list to do what's called a safety risk mitigation panel. Again, I must stress this is only for those in controlled airspace right now. That's not to say that others won't be available and uncontrolled at some point, but right now we're trying to get through the controlled airspace. And what this safety risk mitigation panel does is it allows the club to sit down with other users in the airspace and negotiate a higher altitude. It's a slow process. I'll just be honest with you. We're going through as many as we can, as quickly as we can, but we're limited by technical writers within the FAA. The FAA only has a few of these technical writers, and each one needs to be present and in person to be able to do it. And then they have to draft reports, and it's a multi-week, sometimes even month-long process per location. The FAA is training additional technical writers, but that in itself is a long process, taking almost a year. So we'll get as many of these SRM panels through as we can. The last one we're being told will be in October of this year. After that, it's going to go to an automated process. So AMA had a national safety risk mitigation panel back at the beginning of the year into last year. And in that, we outlined basically the requirements that will be put in a checklist into the air traffic controller's manual. And so a club will do a request, maybe they're in Lance grid or UAS facility map grid, which allows them to operate up to 400 feet. They have that in their LOA. They've been put on the safety risk mitigation panel, and they're requesting 2,000 feet. So we're being told in November, the air traffic control manager will look at that request, put it up against that checklist, and basically say, in order for the safety to be mitigated to an acceptable risk, the club will need to do A, B, C, and D before we will approve or that operation. There may be locations that just won't be approved or can't be approved. If you're right in a flight pattern and the manned aircraft are coming in at 1,000 feet for landing or a takeoff, and you're asking for 2,000 feet, that's probably not going to be something we're going to be able to mitigate. Some instances we can, others we won't be able to. But if you're in a safe location and we can mitigate those risks, then the air traffic control manager will put that up against the checklist and approve that, or tell you what the club will need to agree to approve those altitudes. Chad and Rich and the other council members have taken part in these safety risk mitigation panels across the country. I think I've been to all of them but one, but we have had a great amount of success with them actually getting the altitude that was requested. I think in every scenario, every club that's requested an altitude and went through this panel has been able to mitigate the risk to a level that's acceptable to get those altitudes, even up to 2,000 feet. Some locations in Class B airspace of all airspace. So the most congested airspace. That being said, it's the most controlled airspace as well. But that club requested 2,000 feet and was able to get that 2,000 feet in a letter of agreement. So we're going to continue that process moving forward. We're in around the 30s, the amount of clubs remaining that want to go through the SRM process. That being said, if a new club opens up in controlled airspace or a club changes location in controlled airspace, they need to go through that process again. So it's never going to be done. It's always going to be something that's going to be in flux for the SRM panels.
So Tyler, maybe for some clarification, if a club needs higher altitude, they work with you.
They do.
And the Gov team for this SRM panel, safety risk management panel. And so far we've been very successful in that. You mentioned that clubs sometimes have to do some extra steps to mitigate risk.
Yeah, and they're usually not.
Give me some examples.
Yeah, they're not overly burdensome. So sometimes they monitor an app that shows ADSB on manned aircraft on their phone, and they check for manned aircraft in the area. One mitigation that was put in place was when the club operates above 1,000 feet. When they're flying above 1,000 feet, they have to have a full-time spotter dedicated just to check in the airspace and alert everybody if a manned aircraft's in the area. Have them land their aircraft till it's gone, and then they can take off. So really, it's those easy to be done mitigations, that not overly burdensome in any scenario that I'm aware of. One club had to set up an email account with air traffic control. And when they had large events, I think that was something like over 15 or 20 pilots, they had to shoot an email and just say, hey, we're going to have over 15 pilots today, and we're going to be operating over 1,000 feet. So very doable things.
Great work.
Uncontrolled airspace is going to be next. We have a meeting. AMA has a meeting with FAA leadership every Thursday, and basically every department within the FAA, if it deals with airspace or UAS integration, is a part of it. And our main topic of discussion for the last few months has been uncontrolled airspace and how we get as many of our fixed flying sites above the 400 feet in writing as we can. So that's really what we're working through. We had made quite a bit of progress, and then COVID hit, and the chief counsel's office within the FAA strictly focused on issues related to medical delivery at nursing homes and COVID-related waiver requests. We're being told that those waiver requests for COVID issues are almost stopped now, and so the chief counsel's office is going to take our waiver requests back up. It's going to be a slow process. I don't want to give anybody the illusion that we're all going to have something in writing for uncontrolled airspace in the next week or month. This is going to be a slow process. We hope that it will be a version or there'll be an exemption that will allow community-based organizations like AMA to have a say. Maybe we have a checklist, like air traffic control has a checklist. And if a club meets the mitigations that are put in place, they can operate up to Class E airspace, say 700 feet or 1,200 feet. And then if they would need to go higher than that, then the possibility would exist for a safety risk mitigation at that site. But again, we want to find a path forward, and the FAA does too, that will allow as many of these sites to operate as quickly as they can without going through the SRM process for every single one of our clubs. Because AMA has 2,400, and that's just AMA. We know that there's other people out there who have fixed flying sites. The military JROTC programs have about 7,000 sites across the country. So if the FAA had to go through this process for every single one of the sites in uncontrolled airspace, or even the possibility they had to go through that, that's too much. So we're going to continue to work on that. As soon as we get an update and the FAA determines what is the best path forward, then we'll share that with our members.
Tyler, we have some questions that are starting to come in. Dylan, behind the scenes, do you mind popping some of those questions up? Oh, okay. Yes, those are, yes, you could still make those purchases. We could still get those installed. Reach out, Mike, to Kelsey at the foundation, and we can get that taken care of for you. How many members were we able to help with dues due to COVID-19? We far exceeded. Oh, yes, Jim Rice. Yes, so we did. Thanks to our members. I'll back up a little bit. We had a really great collaborative effort with AMA, with the AMA Foundation, with our members. We recognized due to financial hardship, some members could not renew their membership. And we don't want anyone not being able to enjoy the hobby due to financial constraints. We want them still to be able to go to their club or to an event and not feel like, well, I got furloughed and I can't afford it. So we launched a program called Separate But Together, in which we asked our members to help make some donations so we could pay for those memberships. And AMA helped with that. The foundation matched those donations as well. And we even threw in a free shirt. Hey, if you made a donation as a thank you, not only will the foundation match it, but we'll give you a free shirt as a thank you. And we've helped, I don't have the number in front of me, but we've helped a lot of members, but we still have some money available. So if you know someone who needs help, whether you're a club officer, you're a CD or an AVP, you can nominate someone at the link there, modelAircraft.org/together. If I were to quantify it, maybe I even hate to quantify it. We're not talking thousands. I mean, we maybe have, I hate to put a number to it, maybe a few hundred left. But that money is allocated just for members who need help, who are in a financial constraint with COVID-19. And there's still some money available. So nominate people and let's take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah, Chad, this is Rich. I think it goes without saying that our members really responded to this call and were very generous. That's why we actually have some money left over that I can't remember the exact number, but I would say that we even tripled our goal as far as what we were trying to raise in this project. So hats off to our members for taking care of their fellow members.
Do you see the indication of a drone fad slowing down? Yeah. Tyler, do you want to address that one?
Yeah, I don't, we saw FA registration numbers and they're pretty high. The FA put something out. I think their last number was in June and it was a 1.2 million or just shy of that. I don't know if it's just a fad. We do have commercial interests that are using drones more and more, and I think we'll continue to see that. I do think that we saw a boom. I think that there's been, a new technology introduced, or relatively newer platform, I'll say, that was introduced, and we had all these people go out and buy them, and we saw those FAA registration numbers really hit a peak. Now that in December, I think December 17th or December 12th, 2020 is going to be that first real renewal for FAA registration. And I'll be interested to see if that 1.2 million registration number continues to be as high as what it is. If we get those numbers, which I do think that the FAA will put that out, or it will at least be information that can be obtained. Because I do think we had a whole group of people. I know a half dozen people who went out and bought the new technology and flew it for a couple weeks, and now it's sitting in their closet, or they crashed it into a tree. And I think just through attrition, we will see FAA registration numbers drop. That being said, we already have Congress and others who have noticed that they want to take action on these issues. So to think that just because the numbers drop on FAA registration, that the regulatory structure on things will change, I'm not sure that is going to be the case. I think that we are under the FAA regulatory authority, and I think that the FAA wants to continue down that path to have that authority over everyone, including the modeling community. That being said, we obviously feel that there's a difference between the aircraft that fly and that are designed to fly visual line of sight and the aircraft that are designed and have the capability to fly beyond visual line of sight. We do think that those need to be regulated separately and in different ways. Obviously, one have more capability, and just like with any other technology, if it has additional capabilities, then the possibility for additional regulations often exists. So remote ID, I see we're getting a lot of questions on that. That's one instance where that holds true. We feel that the aircraft that are designed to only be flown within line of sight and only have that capability, they should face remote ID requirements differently than aircraft that have the capability to fly beyond visual line of sight, because they have that capability. They have that possibility of, the person stays anonymous and we don't know who's flying that aircraft if it's a mile down the road or wherever. Remote ID, obviously, we are at the point where the public comment period is closed. That closed back in March. Public no longer can reach out and share their thoughts or opinions with the FAA on that. What you can do is you can reach out and share your thoughts and opinions with your senators or your representative, and that's what AMA is doing. We're continuing to work with members of Congress to push what our public comment stated, which was, we understand that Department of Defense and Homeland Security and others in the security agency want remote ID, and we understand that, and we understand that it's coming. That being said, we feel like there's a much simpler approach that can be taken. We don't feel that equipage needs to be a requirement on every single aircraft. We feel that fixed flying site should be a permanent solution. If you go through the FRIA process and get your fixed flying site exempt and you move locations 5 years down the road, you should be able to request a new exemption for that new site. So we're pushing that with Congress. We understand that not everybody flies at a fixed flying site. For those that don't fly at a fixed flying site, we would like to see an app-based solution or a web-based solution. We can get on your computer, you can get on your phone, and you can say, I'm Tyler Dobbs, I'm flying from this location. Here's my FAA registration number. Here's my phone number. And kind of like Google Maps, it'll put a radius around you, and the service providers within the FAA will know that Tyler Dobbs is flying at this location. If law enforcement or the FAA want to contact me, if they need to tell me to stop flying for any reason, they would have access to that through that service provider. It wouldn't require any equipage on the aircraft. It wouldn't require a monthly service fee, we hope. We're working with a number of organizations, EAA, AOPA, even Google's Project Wing, on this app-based solution. And we're urging Congress to push the FAA to adopt it before the final rule comes out. So that's where it stands. We're due to some regulatory requirements. The FAA can't comment on where the process is, what the final rule is going to have in it until it comes out. And the FAA's made it clear numerous times. Even a couple of weeks ago at the FAA symposium, I heard that the final rule's coming out in December of 2020. So that is their goal, and that's where they're trying to get it out the door. That's when everybody in the industry, including AMA, will know what's in that final rule, and we won't know until that date.
So what happens after, let's say the FAA meets the deadline, which they typically don't, and they do get the final rule out by the end of the year? What happens next? Does that mean it's immediately enforced?
It's not. So with the proposed rule, we saw some timelines in there, and we would assume the final rule would have the same. Again, we don't know exactly what those will be. But so in the proposed rule, there was a whole host of manufacturers' requirements. They had to have, there was limited remote ID and there was standard remote ID, and the aircraft had to have one of those two options included in either the aircraft or the transmitter or both. But they had 2 years. Manufacturers had 2 years to meet those requirements and get everything implemented that was in that rule. And then after those 2 years, users had an additional year to meet those requirements. So if it is passed, there's going to be a time frame, whatever that is. If you go off the proposed rule, it's essentially 3 years for users before we would actually see something fully implemented and enforceable. I do get the sense that the exemption for fixed flying sites will be sooner than that, 3 years. Again, I could be wrong. The FAA's halted projects more times than they push through and meet their deadlines. But the FAA is doing some work to websites and things like that that will allow fixed flying site locations to be charted through the website. So I can only assume that that is being done for the FRIA remote ID exemption process.
And again, for those club officers and others, the idea is that if you're at a fixed flying site like an AMA flying field, you wouldn't necessarily be obligated to buy a widget and put it on and comply with remote ID that way. Just take your model aircraft to the flying field as you always have, and as long as you stay within your airspace, you're good to go.
Right. And that's the, again, AMA, the other groups in the industry that have been our biggest allies. We continue meetings with Congress nonstop on this issue. We want the FAA to take a serious look at those 53,000 comments, take a serious look at what they proposed in that remote ID rule, and see what that's going to do to the industry, within the United States, the mom and pop type shops, the people who sell kits that now have the requirements to meet these certification and standards thresholds that many just won't be able to meet. They're going to have to be able to open their shops up to FAA inspections and audits, and it's just going to be too much. So we need the FAA to take a serious look at this, and that's what we're urging them to do.
Ted asks, in the past, we would get emails from AMA about TFRs for our area. Being in Indy, we have the VP visiting often and have not seen those emails in a while. Are we still sending those?
We are. So we send emails out for 30 nautical mile TFRs, which are it's presidential travel. So if the president travels, you get an email if you're in that area, or if you fly at a club that's within that area. It's also on Facebook, Twitter, and AMA's website. If the vice president or someone else who sends a 3 nautical mile TFR is pushed out, then those go to AMA's website, Facebook, Twitter. And we always have a link under resources that you can see every NOTAM across the country at.
Thank you, sir.
I'll also mention the safety and knowledge test. I know a lot of people are asking about that. We expect Advisory Circular 9157C to come out towards the end of this year. And in that advisory circular, it will have a process to recognize community-based organizations and a process to administer and take the safety and knowledge test. AMA has been working on the safety and knowledge test with the FAA since the very beginning. We hosted the first roundtable with the other organizations that plan to participate. We have been a part of the test creation, question creation process. It's not going to be overly burdensome. I mean, just to get that out there, it's going to be a multiple choice test. It's going to be relatively few questions. It's a pass test. You can only pass it. It's one of those tests where it's A, B, C, and D. And if you answer A and it's D, it says, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Try again. You answer B, I'm sorry, that's wrong. Try again. So there's no failing this test. It's going to be relatively simple. And the questions are relatively simple. The FAA has made it clear that they know that and there's only so many questions. They understand that those answers will be on the internet probably 2 or 3 minutes after the test goes live. They're aware of that, and they don't have any plans to do anything about it. So it is going to be a relatively simple test, but something that you're going to have to go through the process to be able to get that certified card that you can show the FAA or law enforcement if they would ask for it.
So I talked to my counterpart in England for the British Model Flyers Association, and they've had the test for over a year now. And it was kind of insightful to look into that crystal ball. And they said, yes, members grumbled about it. They weren't happy about it. But it's their FAA, their CA mandated it. But most members quickly realized, this test was easy. Get it in and out, get it done. A lot of clubs would get together and they would just say, all right, guys, we're going to spend our club meeting. We're all going to take the test together just to get this out of the way. And it really became a non-issue. But we recognize, especially club officers, you're going to hear grumbling. We're going to hear grumbling about it. It's just one of those things that's on the horizon, and we don't know when it will be implemented, but it's coming sooner than later.
Yeah. Frank asked, is AMA planning to register current club fields? We'll do as much as that legwork as we possibly can. Like with the letter of agreement process, the club has to take part in that, but we do as much of the data entry and the legwork as possible. Essentially, we send you a questionnaire for the SRM process. You answer it, and we do the work in between. We chart the location. We send that to the FAA and do all the paperwork. We assume it'll be a similar process for these fixed flying site exemptions. Again, we want to take as much of that burden from you as we can.
And that answers a previous question, and Tyler, you're exactly right. We want to take on as much of that workload on your behalf as possible. We want you to just be able to go out to your flying field and enjoy the hobby, and we'll do all the behind the scenes work. And there's a question about SRM panels. Can a club apply directly, or should they go through you, Tyler? And the way the FAA has it set up is they want to work through AMA and through a CDO with that. So, and again, it fulfills our mission to really take on a lot of that burden and behind the scenes work. And it gets awfully nuanced. Each little word and how you phrase things matter. And so you really want those who are in the know to lead that effort.
Yeah. So if you have a club in controlled airspace and you want to get a letter of agreement and go through that process, reach out to me or my team and we'll get that started for you.
Any other questions behind the scenes? I think we've hit most of the major questions and we're near the top of the hour. Alan asks, go ahead. Let me ask this question, Rich, and I'll turn it to you. Alan asks, what impact will all the new proposed regulations have, in your opinion, of AMA membership? And also, let me go back to what I saw with British model flyers and others, because we're not just seeing this here in the States, we're seeing this globally in Australia and other countries as well. In some ways, we're kind of behind the eight ball on some of the regulations. It has impacted AMA's membership and it's impacted their membership, but what they're finding is that the regulations aren't as onerous as they feared. It's a testing. Testing is not going to be something people want to do, but when they find out it only takes a few minutes and it's, maybe really simple questions that you're guaranteed to pass, it's a nuisance. But
and I'll mention that when we started this process, the FAA came to us and said, we're going to implement a test that's similar to Part 107. It'll probably take about 4 hours. And we went back to the FAA and said, you're going to have about a 5% compliance rate on this then, because I'm not going to take it. And we got that to where now originally it was about 60 questions in 4 hours. And now it's roughly, I can't say the exact number, but it'll be a dozen and a half or so questions, maybe a little bit more. And anywhere from, if you're a fast test taker, 5 minutes to somewhere maybe around 15 or 20 if you're the slowest test taker. So super simple test. I don't think anybody's going to have any issue with it.
And the idea is, and I get the argument, we've been flying in the airspace for a century without any issue. Why are we doing this? And we talked about the drone fad. I believe we're seeing fewer and fewer recreational drone operators out there. We're definitely seeing a growth in commercial and other uses in the airspace. And the airspace will get more congested. So the FAA and Congress's intent is, let's just make sure we all are playing by the same rules and we all understand what should we do if you're flying and you see a manned aircraft? Because while I feel confident our community knows that, not every recreational operator knows that. We're at the top of the hour, Rich. I'm going to turn it over to you to wrap up this meeting and add any closing comments.
Okay. Well, thanks, Chad and Tyler. Before we get off the subject of government relations, I can't thank the government relations team enough for the work that they do for us literally every day. I know that AMA gets beat up on social media from time to time. And I know people have opinions about AMA's strategy and what they think we did right, what we think we did wrong. But if you're thinking that AMA is sitting on our hands doing nothing, couldn't be farther from the truth. I can't tell you the number of hours these guys put in. I mean, we have the full-time staff head up by Tyler that's working on these issues every day and oftentimes late into the evening. Chad and I probably on average attend 2 to 4 group calls of some kind, some type of FAA call, whether that's the Drone Advisory Committee, whether that's the ASTM Standards Committee, whether that's the UAS safety team. I mean, you name it, we're involved in it. And every time that we're on in that activity, we are fighting for the rights of the AMA membership and the rights of the air modeling community in general. I mean, we literally want, our goal is so that you are able to continue to fly your aircraft much the same way as you have in the past for decades to come and for generations to come. And that isn't just said lightly. Now, I know there's going to be some changes. We've already seen registration, but that was pretty innocuous. You know, it was about a 10-minute process that took $5. We know there's going to be this test, which will probably again take about 10 minutes and no cost. And it'll be a little bit aggravating for those of us who have been doing this for decades. You know, I'm a commercial pilot that's been operating full-scale aircraft for almost 50 years. Actually, I mean, large-scale commercial aircraft. And I'll still be one of those taking that stupid little test. But it's not going to affect how I go out and fly my model airplanes. I'm still going to have the same amount of fun, the same amount of dedication to the hobby as I always have. And I hope that all of you do too. And I hope you recognize that AMA truly is working on your behalf. So I'll get off my soapbox. I know we're right at the top of the hour. So by closing, I just want to thank you guys as the leadership group. Whether you're a VP, AVP, contest director, leader member, club officer, safety officer, everything you do is important. Everything you do supports this hobby and allows, again, the average AMA member to go out there and enjoy and have fun flying his model airplanes while we take care of all of the administrative stuff in the background. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your continued support of the AMA. I hope we get a chance to do this again soon because I thoroughly enjoy it. I wish we were more face-to-face, but until that time comes, stay safe, stay well, have a great modeling day.